welcome back to the For a Purpose podcast. My name is Jaden Boyce. Alongside me is John Hinsman. To the left of me is every fourth grader's favorite teacher, an All-American at Winona State, and right now, just the best bass pro fisherman you'll ever meet in your life, Peyton Dockel. How you doing today?
Hey, not too bad. Not too bad. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming over here, Dockel. And as you know, we get started with the For a Purpose podcast. If you listen to a few episodes, we just like to know everybody's purpose, where you're from, how you got to where you're at. So, start with us. I hit you with a follow on Instagram today. I was looking through your Instagram, just seeing if anything I needed to know. I got towards the bottom. I saw she had to be like 15 or 16 playing basketball. You looked like a man, like when you were a young Dockel. So, take us through the start of your journey to your basketball career and football career in high school.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was probably, I don't know, fourth or fifth grade, and I'm kind of trying all the sports, from wrestling to track to basketball to football. Me like, which one's going to be my favorite? Basketball. All the way was by far my favorite through all the years. Worked through that, came up freshman year. I ended up playing basketball, football, and track, but that basketball still stuck with me through that. I worked hard with that. From that to senior year, and senior year I was quite a few pounds skinnier. Give me a break on that. And there was a couple of coaches deciding if I wanted to play basketball or football, and I'm like, I don't know, looking at my body and thinking about the next level, thinking, maybe what's the best idea in my interest. So I decided football, but basketball was by far the first sport. So football took me in a direction that I couldn't be more than happy what happened with that. I ended up going to Winona State to play football. So I went there in 18. Met some of my best friends there. Met people that are going to be in my wedding. Ended up redshirt my first year, and redshirt was a great experience, is what I'll say. To put that into perspective, it's a grind. And after we got done with that redshirt year, I'm like, ooh, is this for me? Like, you kind of have those questions to yourself, like, kind of come to that moment, like, this is hard. Am I going to fight through these times? And obviously I made another, hopefully a great decision with that, to like, I got to make it through this. So after you kind of get through that first redshirt year and you kind of get into those times of playing and starting to be a big impact on the team, and those are just when the fun starts. So I was lucky enough to get into a playing role after that year, and I stayed my fifth year. I was like, I got to play one more of these. I got to finish with the boys. So I ended up playing a fifth year at Winona State. So that was in 2022. And after that, it was a good career. I enjoyed myself. Like I said, made good friends. And then it was time to get a job. So I'm from Bloomer, Wisconsin originally. My fiance is from Woodbury. So she's also a teacher. So we were like, let's try and find a spot somewhere in between. So we started looking at different schools. We looked up in Balsam Lake. We looked in Richmond. Looked in Roberts, and we're like, let's start applying for a couple of these. And I actually knew Coach Tackman and Coach Berg. They coached me in the All-Star game. So I gave Coach Berg and them a holler. I was like, hey, any jobs opening? And I knew a guy up from Balsam Lake too. And they're like, yeah, try out. So ended up being Central was the breadwinner on that one. And I'm just lucky to be here. And now my second year teaching some fourth graders. I enjoy the school district, the community. I got a house in Hammond now. But everything's been well, and just really enjoying my time now here.
I remember meeting you for the first time, hearing that you were going to be a coach, and you came into the weight room, introduced yourself to all of us. The first thing I thought when I saw you was like, how is this guy a fourth grade teacher? Like, is he going to be stepping on these kids? I was like, you are a very large man to be teaching fourth graders. But no, as soon as you came on to the football staff and stuff, like immediate improvement for the football team and stuff. Like, what went into your thought of like wanting to coach high school in particular, and like wanting to like make a difference on these players for like playing wise and just like personal wise?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't come far from where the apple falls off the tree, but my dad's also a teacher and a coach. So growing up, he was the head coach at Chautauqua for my longest years, and I was always rivals with Bloomer, and he's a special education teacher, and seeing what he did, and I was like, I want to do that. So just to be able to see him do it and the impact that he's had on our community, Chautauqua's community, I'm like, I want to come in and see if I can do this. And my biggest thing, just stepped into the program. I was like, how can I make it just a little bit better? Step in. I don't want to do too much. I want to go in and try and give my 2 cents and improve it in any little way I can. So it's been fun to start that journey here now with 2 years under my belt.
Awesome. So, being a small town, I don't think people realize, we have a major podcast here. We've got to be, what, a couple million followers so far?
At least.
But you talk about Bloomer. What's the size of Bloomer?
There's probably, I mean, it's growing a little bit now. We're probably like just a little under 4 grand.
Ooh.
Okay, so when you were in there, what was your school size?
We had 92 kids in my graduating class.
Okay, so 92. So you're looking at, about just under 400 in your high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being a small town like that, you have, and actually back up middle school, you have a lot of times people like, we need the multi-sport athlete. And you love basketball, and I remember back in my days, I loved basketball and I always wanted to play football, but being on the farm, my brother got to play football. I had to play basketball. That's the way it was. So, did you ever give up basketball, or did you play it all the way through?
No, I did play it all the way through. Got into high school, and I guess the mentality with most of my friend group was we get done with one sport, we kind of moved on to the next one. That was just kind of my core group of friends and the kind of the way that went. But yeah, I stuck with basketball all the way through with it.
Well, you're the fun fact about you, the all-time leading scorer at Bloomer High School, right?
I was till last year.
Oh.
Last year, yeah, I got taken over. Yep.
How many points did you score?
I was 1,490. A kid passed that up though last year. So
John, what were you at? What was your
16 something.
Whoa.
Yeah, but I never got the shot as 3-pointer. Otherwise, a bit more.
Okay,
That's
here
always
we
side.
go.
Always side, yeah. So, what position were you in basketball?
I was more of a forward. I stepped out and shot the three once in a while, but a lot of time spent down in the paint.
Yeah. For me, that's one of the things I miss when fall come around and I see the guys getting together for fall camp. I never got to experience that. You see the guys coming and being a small town guy like that, it really, for around here, is the heartbeat of the community. I'm not sure about Bloomer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know Bloomer was really tough back. I don't know if they still are now, but I don't think they're as tough as currently as they were in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But I always know when you talked about the Bloomer, the Blackhawks.
Yep.
When you always talked about Bloomer, it was like, wow, like there's a tough, hard-nosed team that's going to come play. And getting back to the point as far as that heartbeat of the community, when the summer was coming to the end, the fall was, coming around. What was it like for you and your buddies, kind of that purpose of coming back there now? We're like, hey, here we come. Your freshman year, obviously you're young, you're trying to figure it out. And okay, where's my role at? So talk us through a little bit your freshman year of football in high school, coming through that and saying, okay, wait a minute. Where do I belong here now?
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about that small town. So in my town, not huge, but we were friends with a lot of the upperclassmen.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you're looking up to those guys that are 3-4 years in advance, and you're like, all right, I'm getting into their show right now. So to be a freshman and coming in, like learning those ropes, like it's kind of when you come into coaching at a young age too. Like I'm gonna give it my best, but I got to learn from the older guys too. So that was freshman year. Yeah, it's kind of takes me back to my college years too. It's where I came in trying to give a little, but just trying to stick out in any way that I can give into the team. But I remember my freshman group of guys. We had a bunch of guys in there, and we were going, "Let's go have fun and let's get after it." Like that was the one mentality. Like if we're gonna do it, let's do it together.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. Like sticking together as a grade and a class and a program in high school football, I think is the biggest thing. I think a lot of times you look at championship teams, you're going to see a large number of seniors on a roster.
And what year did you graduate?
2018.
2018. And I feel like since then into now, and this is high school sports, basketball and football, I've seen a lot, is, back then, I'd go down to some Elmwood games and stuff. It was like the whole community would go out and stuff. And kind of what I'm like seeing now is like a drift in that. I don't know if it's because like there's so many live streams and now and stuff, like anyone can watch it. But I mean, yesterday we went to the girls' basketball game. It was Baldwin versus Central. Biggest rivalry around, right? Big rivalry. You look in the student sections, nobody's really there. Not as many. You look in the whole stands. It's not really packed. John, you were telling me a story, but when y'all played Spring Valley, and I didn't even believe this. He's like, right after school, there'd be a line, like just to get into the JV game, like all throughout, like a longest line. I didn't even believe it. How is that? Because that's changed a lot even since like 2018, has it not? Like, what have you seen in that change?
Yeah, and I think 2018, not that long ago.
It's
right?
not at all. No.
And I think, and we had like when we were playing a good team, yeah, a lot of people would come. I ref most nights of the week, and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
You look everywhere. Last night I was at a Division I school. I want to say there was 30 kids in the student section. Like I don't know if it's just not a thing kids want to do anymore. They watch it on a live stream, but everywhere I went, you just don't see it what it used to be.
Well, if we roll back to your playing days, my playing days were far removed before you were even born. I mean, I graduated in '93, and so, um, to Jaden's point, yeah, when we played Spring Valley, I mean, or Elk Mound or anybody, it was competitive, and it was just it was what it was. But I think back to is, I think we had a max of 18 games, conference games, or no, 18 games total. So I think we played the Dun St. Croix. So what was there? Probably 16 conference games. You played everybody home and away. Then you had 2 non-conference games. That was it. And I don't even know what is now 23.
I think it can get up to like 26 now.
I mean, so you look at and again, not to rewind too far in your past, but you think about when you're in middle school, how much travel basketball or travel sports did you do?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Most weekends you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, and so you look at the number of the games that are played now, and what's your perspective on? You look at this and say, okay, well, it's just another game. It's just another game. And going to Jaden's point, like and I'm sure in Bloomer, who was your biggest rival?
Shatek.
Shatek. So, I mean, when it was a Bloomer Shatek night, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Like there was no questions. Like that was it. I'm sure, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's basketball or football, volleyball, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go back to though, what's your perspective on the number of games that are played right now or back when you played to now? I mean, how does that impact what you see as going on?
Yeah, I think it's a great point where you say it. A lot of times you just see, oh, another game. I feel like a lot of times in basketball, now you said you played 18 about. Now I feel like they're jam-packing them anywhere they can get them.
At the tournaments, the Christmas tournaments, all that different stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing doubleheaders here, there, trying to fit in as many non-con games as you can get, play as many as you can. Is that beneficial? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. What's your thoughts on it?
I mean, so you're like we're talking John from Elmwood, you're from Bloomer. I was like kind of in Elmwood for a little bit and then went to Central, obviously. With Bloomer and Elmwood, like when high school sports are that town basically. For John, it like definitely like high school sports were the town. For you, it kind of like was. It was like going like trending out of that a little bit. But like, is that changing? Like, have you been to a lot of Bloomer games and stuff? Like, is like the town just like not the same as it was when high school sports were dominating like the whole city or the whole town?
Yeah, I've probably only been back to 2 or 3 games, but yeah, I don't. You even walk downtown like during homecoming and things used to just be like, it's like that. If something's happening, people are going to it.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what time of year it is. If it's a big time thing, the community's showing for it. Nowadays, it's just not the same.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that's all happened. I mean, you're a coach at Central. I mean, I feel like our football games, I mean, they get a decent amount of people and stuff. But yeah, my parents always tell me like, "Oh, homecoming, this is all like a movie type of deal." Like now, it's just like, I mean, you're not even like cool if you went homecoming. I mean, they try to like prank people that try to get it and stuff. So it's like it is like kind of weird how that's all changed. But going a different direction though, a lot of people I've talked to a lot of like different students about getting recruited for colleges and stuff. You got recruited by Winona State and you graduated with about 90 people. Some people don't think you can get recruited at a small school. Tell us about your experience with that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I'd like to end up hearing Carson's story one of these times too. But being a Division II athlete has its perks, but it's hard because you're not to that Division I level when it comes to the recruiting process. So there's still some Division III schools that are recruiting. So I kind of had the best of all of those with the Division II level where they can start offering money for scholarships, and that amount can vary from school to school. And obviously now with NIL deals and stuff like that, I don't know how much that touches Division II at all. But the money offering for scholarships was a big one. But it's interesting because I didn't get my first offer till after my senior year season.
Oh, really?
So it was late. And I think that transition is making difference now too, earlier into kids' careers. But being from a small school, the first time I got my first interest was after I went to the North Dakota State camp. So I kind of put myself out there. But otherwise, I had Eau Claire interested and Stout. But like being from the small town in Bloomer, I didn't have the most. But then after I got a little notice at North Dakota State, and then it kind of started clicking. I ended up with four different offers from 4 Division II schools. And yeah, and it's interesting, that recruiting process. It's just a business.
What sold you on Winona?
Uh I want to say Coach Barton. He was my recruiting guy, and I told him that I was thinking about some other schools, and he's like, "I'll be at your school tomorrow at 8." And I was like, "All right, let's talk." But just the relationships that you can create, you can tell through the process who the real people are, who the fake people are, like how they address your family, how they talk, like just being around them for an hour or two, whether they come to your house, they come to your school, you go to them, you get that feeling of if I'm meant to be there or not.
You know, that's the thing about the WEAC, the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Conference. So your Stouts, your Eau Claires, those schools, they know what Western Wisconsin has, and they know that not a lot of schools, bigger schools, come and look at these kids, and so they're very, I think, uh, timely in their offers because they don't want anybody to know. You know, because nowadays you make an offer, what's the first thing you do, or get an offer?
Post it.
It's going
Post
straight
it.
to Twitter.
Right? Put it out there and say, all right, hey, I got an offer. And so then people are like, oh, why is this kid getting offered? So, you know, I think that's one of the things. But the WEAC is one of the strongest conference in the country, Division III. And they're able to grab kids that a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't know about that kid. Now the transfer portal is changing that because you can have a kid like the kid from Bethel that had a really good season, now is going to Madison this next year. You can have a really good season and all of a sudden you can transfer and move around. But, you know, to your point is, you know, and I remember back in the day when I was getting recruited, Eau Claire was really good. Ken Anderson was a coach at that time, and they were just jam-packed all the time. But I went up going to St. Cloud State and played there. And you're same conversation you're having is Division II. They don't have luxuries that Division I does. You know, you're on the bus, you're riding wherever you're going, and it's cold or whatever. Your meals are Ponderosa or, you know, Burger King or whatever, and you get your $6.75, and that's all you get. You can't go over it, whatever it was in the day. But, you know, it's just interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic right now. And, you know, my experience and your experiences was different, but now that it's changed even dramatically more from there to what we're currently going through. So,
Well, with the transfer portal and the NIL stuff, would that have affected you if all that stuff was, if you were in Winona State right now?
So that came on right at the end of Winona State, and me and my buddies, when we thought NIL, we're like, let's try and get some. So I'll never forget we were emailing some companies. We're like, can we get anything? So we ended up getting like Liquid IV was one of them. We're like, can we get something? So like they'd send us like 2 packs of this thing if we posted it on our Instagram. So every month they'd send 2 packs. We posted, but it was just kind of a meme when it came to that. But yeah, it was interesting. But right at the end of my career there.
so now your fiance is from Woodbury, and where did she go to school?
Woodbury High School.
Okay, so your experiences are completely different.
Yes.
You know, and was she an athlete?
No, she wasn't.
Okay.
She played soccer in high school, but then went to Winona just for school.
So she was an athlete in high school?
Yeah,
then?
in high school. Yep.
Okay.
Soccer.
So does she teach in Central?
Yeah, she teaches kindergarten.
Okay, so what's her thoughts so far on that change?
I never thought after starting to date her that I could ever get her into a small town. But now she's been in the dynamic. She taught 1 year over in the cities while I played my 5th year, and then came back, and she's just loving Hammond. Loves the community. I don't think she was ever a part of a small community to know like the impact it can have.
Yeah.
And being a part of that, because like I talked to her, she didn't know half of her graduating class.
Sure.
And just knowing and seeing, and our elementary school, I can't say enough good things about it, from our administration top to bottom. But we enjoy the small town. We enjoy what we got going at Central, and we're excited to keep going with it.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, like no, like not knowing like half your class. That's insane to even think about. Because I mean, my cousin Fritzy, he was
Yeah.
a shout out Fritz,
Oh
shout out
yeah.
Frederick, or shout out Travis too. But he was what, a freshman when you were a
Yep.
senior.
Yep.
You guys talk and
Yeah,
stuff, right? Yeah,
absolutely. We'd go out to his grandma's farm, see the puppies they'd have.
yeah.
Like, yeah, that was that small town community. Like I said, I'm 3, 4 years older than him, and we're friends.
And what,
I
your
mean,
fiance probably didn't talk to like any like lower
no,
classmen, really,
no.
right?
Like she said, she had her core group in Woodbury, and that's
Mhm.
kind of who they're friends with.
Yeah, I feel like the whole Hammond area, living wise, is like a really good area because you get that small town feel. But then I feel like you need to go anywhere else, like the city or something like that. It's just a what, like what, 30, 40 minute drive to like Woodbury.
Yeah,
So I feel like it's
absolutely.
really, really good for both.
Yeah, I wish I was a Gopher fan so I could just sneak over to the game, but I just can't convince
We can stop
myself
this
yet.
interview now.
Now you might have to transition over to Gopher fan, Doc. Well, I hear it's been pretty rough on you recently cheering for the Wisconsin team.
Yeah, it's been a heartbreaker the last couple of years here. But
With Daco, going back to your Winona State career, this is my bad for not doing like good enough research. I do know you're an All-American. Was it your 5th year?
yeah, my last
Okay.
year, yep.
Explain us through that whole year. What came together for you that season, and like what brought you to like that All-American
What,
goal?
posi-
that I
what
bet you
position
had?
did you play?
I played left guard.
Okay.
Yep. Played my first year at left tackle and then left guard the rest of them. Yeah, it was an interesting thing. So my last year, my 4th year, going into my senior year, we got a new head coach. So I was very close with my offensive line coach. Next thing you know, that winter, about February, our whole coaching staff is out of there. So a new head coach is now bringing in all his guys. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Gonna get the best of both worlds with a whole new coaching staff in our last year. Can that be good? Can that be bad? And I was like, let's just go with it. But we ended up getting an offensive line coach that I meshed with really well, Trevor Olson. He's now the offensive line coach at University of North Dakota. Great guy, but he got in there and he was the type of guy that not all about technique, just get the job done. Like, I don't care how you do it, but we got to get the job done.
Yeah.
And which was beneficial to me. So I went kind of from 2 different tactics of coaching. I was like, all right, like I just got to get the job done. He would teach techniques if he needed and things like that. But I just think the core of like my senior class, again, it comes back down to that. We only had, I want to say we started with 43 recruits and we were down to 8. And my first 4 years, we were probably 3 plays away from making the playoffs all 3 of those years. And I was like, we got to come together and do this. Like, we got a new coaching staff and new everything. Like, it's got to be more or less player led when it comes to that. Like, all these guys are new in town. So we just kind of took it on to us. Like, just no more excuses anymore. Like, why can't we do it? Like, let's do it. Like, we've been this close for this many years. Like, let's quit being that story. So I think that was a lot of determination and things that we had in ourselves. Like, let's quit being the team that's so close. Let's try and just punch our way and see what happens. It all started that spring. You start in spring ball for college, and then you get out of spring ball straight to summer and then straight to fall. And it was a learning year. I learned a lot. You learn every time you play the game. But we kind of just got together as seniors and like, let's do it. And sure enough, we ended up punching our way to the playoffs, and I ended up losing first round up in Bemidji. But that was our goal at Leary. Let's try and win the conference. We ended up winning the South, and let's try and make a little run and see what happens. But that was our overall goal. But we finally ended up doing that senior year.
For a little controversial question, I just want to have a nice fun question to ask you. When you were coaching at Central, we'd have this like the turnover circuit, the turnover circuit. So you'd have your like corners and wideouts are in like one group, and like you'd have your linebackers, linemen, and all this stuff. And I was with the corners and wideouts. And every time we get to Daco, I mean, we're all like, you always call us the pretty boys and stuff, you and Trinary and stuff. Every time I'd see Daco, I'd like, like the whole lineman, like the push step thing that I do. I'd always do that. And you'd always like, oh, the skill position players always think that's all we do, the tackle and all this and stuff. When it comes down to football, Daco, very controversial question. You've played tackle, you've played guard. What is, you think, most difficult position to play, maybe to learn? Putting you on the spot with that question, but
Yeah. So you talking all positions in the game of football?
I'll throw all positions in there just to make it spicy.
If I had to take the hardest position to play in college football, I would like to say offensive line, but I'm not gonna.
Ooh,
But I'm gonna say defensive back.
really?
It's gotta be sticking on someone
I'm
that
agreeing
close.
with you.
Like, are you agreeing with me?
Yeah, you know I'd
Like,
be biased.
Yes, offensive line, but like, there's certain things you can get away. Like, I mean, as an offense lineman, like, you might not have your best play. It might not quite affect the outcome. You get burnt at corner, man. Everybody's looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
I think corner's got to be one of the hardest positions.
And then offensive line, which would you pick?
Left tackle.
Left tackle, you say?
Yeah.
Blind side, yeah, 100%.
And blind side, especially at tackle, you're most of the game you're out on an island. But if you like those one-on-one fights, probably for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to ask Carson. See you guys agree, disagree, or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah, do you ever play center?
I never did, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of same thing with the one-on-one matchups.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things we were talking about last week is, it's watching center. Obviously, Carson plays there some more in tune with what he's doing and just making sure you have everybody in check. You have two on your right and two on your left, and like everybody's got to know because if one person is on the wrong page, it looks like hell.
Then you got to worry about snapping that football. Oh, I can't even imagine.
And getting your hand up ready to block somebody breathing down your neck. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to watch, but I do agree. And that kind of leads to my next question is, this mindset, as far as whether you're a defensive back, cornerback, obviously we have the opportunity to watch Caleb Downs and, Travion Henderson and the way that those guys not only share the way they work, but their faith and their belief and their trust, in God as well. But let's talk about the mindset a little bit as far as going through that process. When you're growing up, and you talked about it briefly, you're a freshman in college, and I redshirted as well, so I get the flavor you're spitting out there. But you're going through college that freshman year, and that mindset of like, because it's not a small town anymore. Now you have the best of the best from every community around, and here you are from Bloomer, and nobody gives two craps about it. And it's like, okay, how did you adjust your mindset from your senior year of college to your freshman year, or excuse me, senior year of high school to your freshman year?
Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster when it comes to that, but just I guess trust in the process and realizing you've been there before to been at the bottom of the totem pole. And like you said, John, nobody cares about you. You're
Right.
coming in from everywhere. Like no one cares on who you are, what you did in high school, how many state championships you won in high school. Nobody cares. But just taking that, swallowing that pride a little bit, and just being able to trust the process, having faith that one day my time is gonna come. But to be able to sit down with yourself and say, hey, eventually it'll come, but I got to put in the time first to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, and you said this earlier, is you started with 43 kids in your class, right? And you're down to 8. And I can't remember the stats on it, but I looked at it one time, like, because I remember when we were going through the process, like how many kids you come in with each year, 30 some, whatever, 40 some kids. And you're lucky if you graduate between 4 or 5 of those kids in the same class. So that mindset of sticking to it, trusting the process, I think is even harder nowadays, which again, we go back to youth sports, because if I don't like this team, if my parents feel like I'm not getting the playing time, well, we'll abandon this one, go to this one. And so I think that's a harder piece, even nowadays, is saying, okay, with the transfer portal, the opportunity to move. And again, there's some legit reasons. I get that. There's some opportunities to say, okay, this isn't just for me and I want to go compete somewhere else. But, how do you, and now as your teacher with fourth graders, how do you help fourth graders start seeing like, hey, yeah, we're talking history, we're talking English, we're talking math and all this stuff, but how do you still even talk mindset to kids at that age right now?
Yeah, great question. I feel like you run into this every day of like why we're doing something, and we sit down in our morning meeting as the fourth grader, and we have our morning meeting, we talk about our agenda, but what we're gonna do that day. But I always tell them like, I'm in this with you. Like, I'm in this with you. I'm doing this. We are training ourselves to be successful for the future. I always talk about the future in my classroom.
Right.
Whether fourth graders, they're 9, 10 years old, but like in the future, we're going to do it in the future. Like I am always talking about how we're preparing ourselves. You want to talk about homework? We're talking about responsibility. Like just anything I can tell them for the future to grow them. But, and I always let them know though, that my big thing is like, I'm in it with you. Like you're not doing this by yourself. Like we're in this together. I'm going to do everything I can do for you. You do everything you can do for me. So just working with them and making them believe that they can do it. when you believe in yourself, that's half the battle. When you can believe in yourself and anything you can do, that's half the battle for that.
And that fourth grade spot too. I mean, a lot of people might not think like, I mean, the fourth graders. I mean, they won't remember all this stuff. But like, I remember we were talking the Jeremiah Smith story we heard. What was he? Was he 9 or 10 when he didn't make the team for his ninth or 10th grade team?
No,
Jeremiah Smith.
not
Yeah.
9-year-old.
Or 9 years old. I mean, yeah, 9 years old. My bad. Yeah, 9 years old. He didn't make the team, and it like fueled him. And like, I mean, he like had that as an example of like what fueled him. I mean, that's insane thinking that he was like a third or fourth grader, and like that's still with him. That still fueled him to go up. So I mean, like, yeah, you might be young, but like still, like, everything's gonna stick in your head. Like you teaching kids about the future. I mean, come on.
And I even think like, and that can be a reverse with that too. Like one negative impact you said with him, like how that can stick with you, but also having how much of a positive impact. Like
Mhm.
those go both ways. You know what I mean? Like give them everything they can do to be successful. Like cutting something down to maybe not making a team, like that's just fuel for the fire too to build someone up too. But being that positive and getting them to that and seeing where people can go, I think is a special thing.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, and you look at fourth graders. I'm sure most of them have cell phones, right?
Yeah.
You know, so I had this conversation with my daughter on the way home today. Like the images that you scroll through, like you don't think you're absorbing it, but your brain takes a snapshot of every image that goes by every time. And whether you think you're soaking or not, it's absorbing. You know, and so to your point, Jaden, you're spot on as far as the impact that you have right now is kudos to you because the impact you're continuing to make it, you don't even know what it'll be. You know, it'll be 20, 25 years down the road where somebody comes back. Oh yeah, Mr. Dockel talked about this back, you know, when we were in fourth grade or whatever. So that's powerful stuff.
Yeah, and then one more going back to kind of your coaching now that I wanted to ask you about. A lot of times I've seen with a lot of my teammates and stuff, and you talk to them, and even when we would have to lead like the seventh or the fifth and sixth graders on a Saturday after film and stuff. Out of these like kids, they get like that one position they might in their mind they want to play, and that's like that's all I need to know. Like I don't need to learn anything else, any of that. And you kind of like try to teach them, well, you need to like know everything about the game and stuff just to help out and stuff. You play tackle and guard. We see Carson this year had to go to center to left guard as well. Tell us how important is that as an offensive lineman, just basically any position, knowing every position, knowing what everybody else is doing also.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, offense line's paving kind of everything to go. I mean, a lot of times in college, we would, when we're drawing up plays or something on a spring ball meeting day, like you're not just drawing up your position, you're drawing up everybody's, working with you five together. But another thing, being able to play all those positions, better odds you getting on the field, especially as a unit, whether in the game time our left guard goes down, someone's moving there, someone's moving here. It's not like playing running back and then going to receiver. It's just different when it comes to offense line with all five of those. Just being vulnerable enough to go from one to the next and knowing how you five are working as a unit, all with one job in mind. That's important.
I mean, that's why like what makes Zach Tom right now for the Packers and Jenkins so
Yeah.
great is like they can play any position you put them out. As we're seeing for Ohio State this year, Donovan Jackson, he's been so great for them because I mean he switched. Was this his first season like ever like going to left tackle?
Yeah, so he's been left guard all the way through, and then I think he played tackle in high school. But you know, to your point too is like you look at again, Ohio State has a game on Monday night. In case somebody didn't know, they're playing.
It's a big one.
But you look at that line this year, and you start with Seth McLaughlin as center, and comes in from Alabama. You know, had a challenging end of the year at Alabama last year. Comes into Ohio State, comes in and competes and earns a job. You know, which then puts Carson back up, which is hard. You know, you start 12 games, and all of a sudden now you're a backup. But then you got Donovan Jackson left guard. You got Josh Simmons, your left tackle. You got Tegra Shabola, your right guard. You got Josh Fryer, your right tackle. So you're going through. You get out to Oregon. All of a sudden, Josh Simmons gets injured. He's out. You put Zen Mihalski in, okay, and you put Austin was in playing because Donnie was hurt. So here you're rolling, or no, excuse me, Austin went in because Tegra was hurt. So you're rolling, then all of a sudden Zen gets hurt. All right, so then you got to make some changes, balance some things around. And then all of a sudden you're going, and all of a sudden Seth tears his Achilles, so he's out. I mean, so you look at the strength of a unit in adversity, you know, the adversity that comes through it. And it's not only just the adversity of getting a line to play together, then you got the mental adversity of like, okay, now I got to know what I'm doing. And now you talk about social media. There's not a lot of people that love you when you don't do well.
Oof.
And I don't care if you're playing at Elmwood High School or you're playing at Winona, you're playing at Ohio State or wherever you're playing. There's people out there that live and breathe to find that negativity and be like, oh, yeah, and it's awful. And what are we doing here?
And it's like so hard not to kind of reach out and like kind of see like how negative people were. Like I'm not sure how it was with Winona if there was a bad game. People would go on Twitter and stuff. Ohio State, obviously, I mean, 30 seconds after a game, there's probably a million posts. But like to be a player or a coach, either one, and to like try to like not get the temptation. It's like a temptation not to like look out and see what people are saying because everyone's like, just don't look at it. Just don't look at negative comments. Don't listen to it. It's not that easy. And for you to like not try to go out, I mean, Doc, what would you say is your best advice for people who, after a bad game or something like that, and they're going through it, like to not like look at the negative comments, and if you do see them, like just not to take it in.
I mean, I think it's human nature. Like you're gonna come to yourself to look at it.
Mhm.
I never really saw anything too negative from Winona. Not big enough school, quite enough to see that. Yeah, if we lost a game, people would post things, but like you said, with like Ohio State or like something like that, like those kids gotta see that. But if I had one piece of advice, is just kind of get away from it after a game or something. Just I'm most of the time just by myself, hanging around with my friends, and we're not even talking football. Like take one day to yourself and let the rah settle down a little bit, and then move on to the next thing. I don't know, but I can't say I've experienced that to the full. But like these Division One guys, I imagine like you're always seeing something. Like you said, after Ohio State game, there's probably 10 clips within 10 seconds. Like
Yeah.
it's just crazy. And those aspects, how people can just tear people down for one play. It's like, oh, did you see the other 75 plays we played? But it always gets caught one way and one camera angle of something. It's crazy.
Well, and I think that's nowadays. I mean, it's a lot of youth sports. It's everybody's like, they get so hyper focused on what you did wrong, and that's what we talk about is you're trying to find your purpose and living your life to your best ability, because it's hard. It's like, and I was telling the kids this morning at workout it's easy to get into that grind of, well, this is to say something bad because I don't have anything good to say, so I'll say something bad because like I feel like I got to say something. If you don't have, it goes back to the old adage: if you don't have anything good to say, don't say nothing at all. Just be quiet. You're fine. But I feel like people's, I get my voice heard. I have to get it out there, and so. But there's one thing I want to touch on. You talk about training back in the day, and now you are on the other side of the script. You work out now, probably just keep yourself in shape a little bit, but you're back on the other side of the training now, and you look at these. You have the view of the fourth graders, but you're also working kids at the high school. What's your view on that piece now, and how do you balance that piece out? And what do you see as, man, this is good, or well, this is just has to change because you said earlier, like you want to respect the people that are there and you're trying to learn from them, but you also have your own knowledge. You're a smart guy. What do you see as you're coming in here and trying to say, okay, let's get these kids ready, prepared uh, for whatever battle may be going in, maybe it be football, volleyball, soccer, whatever it is. So,
hmm Yeah, I think when it came to strength and conditioning at Winona, we had an awesome guy. His name was Eddie Hodges. He has a business down in La Crosse, and we hired him out my last year. And he's a great dude, but it was kind of all about building the culture with him in the weight room and what we're gonna do in there. And it wasn't necessarily like exactly what lifts we were doing, but just having everybody in there together to build a culture and realize like we're gonna go through hard stuff lifting these weights, but we're doing it together.
mhm.
Um, whether that be conditioning, we had a Navy SEAL guy come in one time and we all hated it, obviously, but like we were doing it together in that culture there, and just seeing um, what different people can do in different aspects and bringing that in there. I think if we can get as many people in there doing as many lifts as we can, I think all that culture can build over time. It's interesting to come into Central and seeing like, for we have in season lifting, and I think I'm a firm believer in that. I don't know your guys' opinions on that and when it comes to that, but just having those kids together, I guess, is my point when it comes to strength and conditioning and just going through those hard things together. I think is a big takeaway from mine.
And we were talking, our last guest we had on is Dan Tees, co-owner of Ethos
Yep.
Performance in Hudson. And we were kind of talking about that, and kind of thought that, I don't know if you agree with this, but it's kind of like going away a little bit with kind of like the as many like high school athletes you see that are out of season, like working out at the same level, and like going in at the same time is so very important, I think, for athletes. Like you can always go, after school, you can always do your own thing and stuff. But like when you're at like as a team, when you're together in the fall because of football, obviously, then in winter when you're lifting, then in spring when you're lifting together, and then summer, obviously, when you're with each other as a team so much, explain how important that truly is.
Yeah, absolutely. That when you can look next to someone in the squat rack next to you and see them busting their butt just as much and knowing you're doing it together, that's what it's all about. You can say, "Yeah, I got to do this, and then I'm gonna lift at 9 o'clock." Okay, but how much can I trust you that you're gonna do that? But
Mhm.
when you can look over and see someone blood, sweat, and tears with yourself next to you, that's when that team culture comes so much together, in my opinion.
There's something to be said when you look in the eyes of your teammate and they're struggling getting that bar up or whatever it is, and you have to help them or you have to yell at them or cheer them on or whatever it is. And um, there's something when you make eye contact and you know that you're giving everything you have, that you built the trust right there. And I think that's a challenging piece at times nowadays because um, everybody wants to be successful, but um, when you're trying to build that culture, and I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, getting your fans at the game is, when you're in it together, whether you're a guy, girl, whatever, you're competing, you're working out together, and on a Friday night, Tuesday night, whatever night you're playing, yeah, I want to go to the game because I know he or she is working at it, and I know they're putting the effort in because I want to support them. And that was something this morning I brought up with the kids. I said last night at the girls' game, I said the loudest our fans cheered last night is when the opponents were shooting a free throw. Don't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But yet when our girls were doing something well, that's when we were the quietest. And it's kind of backwards. It's like how do we reverse that and build that support back, saying, okay, yeah, we can hoop and ha whatever when the other opponents, have some fun with that. But the same token is like how do we build that support back? And so, it's an interesting time. It really is, trying to reverse that psychology and that thought of like, hey, how do we get back to building this? Because um, there's a lot of cool things that are happening, but I just think we're focused on the wrong thing a little bit.
Yeah, last thing we're gonna touch up on, John. I'm not forcing you to say anything about this, but there is a big game going on Monday. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, John. But Doc, you were talking to me earlier. You said Penn State was your pick, but Penn State's obviously not here. It's Notre Dame versus Ohio State. What's your thoughts on this upcoming game Monday night?
Yeah. With the first year, I'll start with that first year playoff model, and I was kind of looking at it, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting. Get those 12 teams." My pick right away was Penn State. I'll admit it was Penn State, and I think just watching them growing up too, it was kind of always a second favorite, and I was like, Penn State might have a chance this year. Then I looked at their road to the path, and I was like, oh, kind of makes it a little more. We start with
Yeah.
SMU, Boise State. They play Notre Dame, maybe get to the ship. Then the Notre Dame loss came. But the thing we talked about earlier, it's interesting how the seeds that we have in the national championship, how that would have never even been a thing last year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it'll be a good game first half. But with the circumstance, I think I'm going Ohio State by 2 touchdowns.
I say by 2 touchdowns. I'm gonna ask you this. This is a big controversial little thing now. Do you like it more with that these teams, because Ohio State, they obviously, people have said it a million times, they lost to Michigan, killed them. Do you think it's better that, most years after that loss, they wouldn't even had a chance to be in the playoffs, but now they get to like redeem themselves? Do you like that better, or do you like it when it's like we're talking like next year, Ohio State and Texas, they play each other like week 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
How that game would mean so much because the loser has a very little shot to make the playoffs. But now looking at it, it's like, okay, you can lose and you can still obviously find your way in the playoffs. Which way do you like more?
I think if you lose in week 1, how much a team changes in 12, 13 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. I think absolutely giving them another shot. I even think about when you used to think, oh, Georgia and Alabama playing for the SEC title, one team's going. Like one loss early on or late on to be able to have a chance still to play for a national title. I love it.
Well, Georgia, what was it last year? Georgia, they went to the SEC championship game, lost to Bama, and then they don't get to the playoffs because of that. Like they get punished for making the SEC championship, kind of.
Yeah.
And now that's gone. I kind of like that. And then last little thing here, we were talking about it earlier too. 12-team playoffs. I think most people right now would say top 12 teams probably didn't get in. Do you want to see the actual top 12 teams get in, or do you want to see these smaller conference schools get an opportunity to get in?
I don't know if there'll ever be a criteria that will fit and make everybody happy with that. Or I don't know how you would do that. And if somebody comes up with it, I want to know. I want to invest in that strategy. But I would like to see, yes, the best 12 teams in it, but I just don't ever see that's going to be possible with when you got the smaller conferences. Nothing against smaller conferences, but it's kind of two different levels of football, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But there are them schools that do come around and beat bigger time teams. So I just think seeing the best 12, I don't know the criteria, but it'd be nice to see the best 12 teams in football.
John, you got any ending thoughts to that?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about, obviously your purpose has changed. You're a high school athlete, college athlete. Now you're a working man, got a job, got a house, you got responsibility. Soon to be married, right?
Yeah.
When's your wedding?
October.
All right, so coming quick here. Um, how have you seen like what your purpose is more evolve as you move along here? Second year of education, teaching. Um, get back to Bloomer much to see your family?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah. So
Um,
how have you seen your purpose evolve, as far as from high school to college to now?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think high school and college wise, when I think of my purpose is I was just trying to be the best version of myself. How can I do my best and yet again be to the highest level? But now I think after being out of high school and college, like I'm trying to make other people the best version of themselves, whether it be a fourth grader in the classroom, on the football field, whether I'm reffing some basketball game and just having those conversations. I just trying to give into people and making them a better version of themselves, whether it's as positive it can be or challenging them in different ways, like both of those ways, just trying to give back to those people. And I guess that'd be how my purpose has changed more about kind of focusing on myself in those younger years to now believing in people and giving them a chance to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, and you'll find out in October. I haven't met your fiance, but when you get married, then all of a sudden, okay, now your purpose is going to evolve even more after that. And it's cool to follow it, because again, as I was telling the kids this morning, you're going to hit challenges. That's just going to happen, But when you come back to, like you said, you've come back to know what your purpose is. It's like, okay, here's my grounding spot, and what do I get to from here?
Yeah, no, 100%. Knowing your purpose, that's the whole point of the whole for purpose. Definitely still coming out with new stuff though. If you didn't watch the last vlog though, watch that. We've done 3 Ohio State game day vlogs. They're 3-0 in there. I don't know if that's the reason. I'm not gonna take credit, but I'll take credit for that. So go watch that. Follow all the social media accounts. Hit subscribe on the YouTube button here. Doc, thank you for coming out here.
Yeah,
Long trip here.
absolutely.
Roads are terrible outside. You decided to stick it out. and
But
come
it is
over.
warmer out tonight.
It is.
It is warmer. Yes.
But yeah, thank you for coming out
Appreciate
here,
having me.
Daco.
Thank you.
Yeah, stay tuned for every single Thursday we're posting these. Have a great night and go Buckeyes.